Hello everyone, this video will be an explanation / narration of the paper written by Dr. Raja Singh, Pedestrian Post-Twilight Illuminance Level for Security, Visual Comfort and Related Parameters, the case of public parks in New Delhi. Before jumping directly on the paper, let's quickly go through the abstract and understand the paper briefly. This paper measures the illuminance level during the post-twilight darkness on walking path of a famous public park in New Delhi. The readings, 252 in number, were mapped on a map using global positioning system and were measured using a lux meter at regular intervals throughout the pathway. The required illuminance depends upon multiple factors including visual comfort, safety, security, prevention of light pollution, and energy saving concerns. In a limited scope, this paper has only looked at the measured values and checked whether they fall within the limits of visual comfort derived from literature and security as taken from the Indian lighting standard. The readings show that about one-third of the points on the pathway have zero illuminance levels. Among the rest, 127 out of 252, about half the points, were at the level of comfort of 1 to 2 lux. The remaining one-third of the total was over-illuminated from the visual comfort point of view, but appropriate from the security approach, which requires readings above 5 lux. It is recommended that instead of the proper focus on lighting levels, uniformly distributed light at an equally distributed spacing throughout the pathway would be more appropriate. Bollard-based lighting focusing on the pathway will be more suitable than the existing high street lamps. This will not only provide lighting for security and comfort, but will also prevent light pollution. Such studies must be repeated across parks and streets in India, and more factors like light temperature should be studied further. Let's start with the introduction. In this study, we have looked at the walking path of a major public park in New Delhi, India, from the point of view of lighting during the post-twilight dark period. So, a famous public park was identified in New Delhi, and lighting level were measured during the post-twilight dark period. This was done to get information about the current lighting condition in this public park. The study of the illuminance level for walkers in the evening is essential as it links to multiple factors. So there are multiple factors that because of which these illuminance level are important for us users. These include visual comfort for the walkers, safety and security of walkers, prevention of light pollution, and the infrastructure capacity of the city in terms of energy usage in large parks. So, visual comfort is important, safety and security of the walkers is important, prevention of light pollution is also important. So, we don't want to waste the light, and the infrastructure capacity of the city in terms of energy usage. So, if a place is overlit, definitely it is using much more energy than it is supposed to do or than the required energy. So it's a wastage of energy. The park chosen for this study is Lodi Garden in New Delhi, one of the Delhi's significant gardens or parks frequented by public of Delhi. This park is as much part of Delhi's popular culture as Hyde Park in London, Yoyogi Park in Tokyo, or Central Park in New York City. This park is important because it is visited by the policymakers, parliamentaries, judges, bureaucrats, and the everyday folks of Delhi. It also forms the blueprint for garden development across the city and other parts of the country. The study has been performed by taking the levels of illuminance in lux on the walking paved path, which complete a complete round of the walking pathway of the garden. The illuminance will get the value of the light that falls on a plane, and in our case, we can call it the brightness colloquially of a plane, where the luminaire is used at night time. Multiple studies have been performed in public parks concerning visual comfort, but very few are believed to have been performed in India. So there are very limited studies which have been performed in India in this topic. The studies show that there is a particular liking based on perception of the people towards the lighting of public parks, and there are the following concerns revolving around the lighting. Why this lighting is so much important, and what role does it play for us humans? Visual comfort. As public parks are places people visit at leisure activities, they would want certain comfort to escape the otherwise high lighting levels of the city or their screens. This factor not only involves brightness but also includes the color temperature of white light. In this current study, we will be limited to illuminance or brightness levels. So, visual comfort is a very important aspect in human. um After the long day that we spend in front of the screens and using our phones, parks are supposed to be places where we go for rejuvenation. We're supposed to feel peaceful there, and if in that park also will come across these high light, like high brightness lights, so that is opposite of what that is the opposite. Visual comfort. As public parks are places people visit as leisure. Let's start with the paper and try to understand the study performed in one of the most famous public park in New Delhi. Introduction. In this study, we have looked at the walking path of a major public park in New Delhi, India, from the point of view of lighting during the post-twilight dark period. This was done to get information about the current lighting condition in this public park. The study of the illuminance levels for walkers in the evening is essential as it links to multiple factors. These include visual comfort for the walkers, safety and security of walkers, prevention of light pollution, and the infrastructure capacity of the city in terms of energy usage in large parks. The park chosen for this study is Lodi Garden in New Delhi, one of Delhi's significant parks frequented by public of Delhi. This park is as much as part of Delhi's popular culture as Hyde Park in London, Yoyogi Park in Tokyo, or Central Park in New York City. This park is important because it is visited by the policymakers, parliamentary judges, bureaucrats, and the everyday folks of Delhi. It also forms the blueprint for garden development across the city and other parts of the country. The study has been performed by taking the levels of illuminance in lux on the walking paved path, which complete a complete round of the walking pathway of the garden. The illuminance will get the value of the light that falls on a plane, and in our case, we can call it the brightness quality of a plane, where the luminaire is used at night time. Multiple studies have been performed in public parks concerning visual comfort, but very few are believed to have been performed in India. The studies show that there is a particular liking based on perception of people toward the lighting of public parks, and there are the following concerns revolving around this lighting. First, visual comfort. As public parks are places where people visit as leisure activities, they would want certain comfort to escape the otherwise high lighting levels of the city or their screens. This factor not only involves brightness but also includes the color temperature of the white light. In this current study, we will be limited to the illuminance or brightness level. So, visual comfort is very important for us humans, and in the entire daytime when we are in front of so many screens and we face so many lights. So, during the night time when we go to the park, we want to have a peaceful walk in the park, but sometimes these bright lights may hinder those peaceful moments. Second, safety, legibility, and navigation. This is where proper lighting level provide people with a primary prevention against getting hurt and not being able to navigate or getting hurt due to anything they may not be able to see and comprehend. So when there will be enough visibility for us humans to see the pathway, then only it would be easy for us to navigate the whole pathway on which we are walking safely. Third is security. The principle of crime prevention through environmental design involves natural surveillance, which can only happen when proper visibility exists. At night, this visibility is possible only if appropriate park lighting exists. Security has a significant component of actual security, where you may see an offender, still there is a considerable component of perceived security, where lighting may lead to the psychological feeling of security in a given space. This may be the most relevant for women using the park at night time. So during night time, it's more important for the light to provide the park with proper illuminance, because one factor which is very important is security, as crimes are increasing day by day in Delhi. So it's very important for us women to feel safety in the park, and that can only happen when there is proper visibility in the park. Fourth, light pollution concerns. Lighting in urban areas affect biodiversity, especially birds and smaller animals that are part of the park ecosystem. So, like we as human beings, we when face high brightness lights or very bright lights, we might feel stressed. The same thing goes for the animals also. So it might also affect the biodiversity of the park. Fifth, cost and policy. The luminaire, the operational lighting cost, the available technology, and the government or industry push towards a particular type of lighting. So the operational lighting cost is also an important point in this. Need for this study. In this study, above standards from the literature were used to analyze the illuminance on the paved walking paths at Lodi Garden, a prominent public park in New Delhi, as a critical principle of security and crime prevention through environmental design, also known as SEPTED. Natural surveillance is a crucial element of security, which means that whatever is visible to many people will deter criminals from acting and reduce the opportunity for crime. Low or zero illuminance may encourage criminal activities as there is no or less visibility. This is most prominent for cities like Delhi, which has one of the India's highest crime densities value, with 20,660 reported in 2021 per square kilometer. Like I earlier mentioned, the crimes are increasing in Delhi, and for that safety purpose also bright like lights are important. Public parks in Delhi have been said to be more prone to crimes and are stated to be a haunt for criminals. A specific mention has been made of this in dark hours. Even the Delhi police chief had previously called for security audit for such parks and other open spaces. This may all the more be crucial for women who may perceive heightened insecurity during the lack of proper illuminance. But the security perception may be universal in the dark light, considering the need for security in these parks, with even the city police chief calling for audits of public parks. This study is most imminent. Such studies with expanded scope must be repeated for other parks and other geographies with similar situations. So this study can serve as a prototype for repeating this kind of study in any other garden or park near your place maybe. Such studies with expanded scope can be repeated for other parks and geographies with similar situations. So this study can serve as a prototype, and this study can be repeated in various parks and gardens. Material and methods. So the primary method followed is as follows. The values for outdoor lighting for security were derived from the standards of outdoor lighting of India from the National Lighting Code. Further values were derived on outdoor lighting specifically of urban parks concerning the following: safety and security at night and the role played by lighting. Visual comfort by lighting in outdoor settings, especially parks, is usually associated with a feeling of leisure. Outdoor lighting pollution concerns, energy consumption concerns. So each and every point, like we mentioned earlier, safety and security, why is it important? Visual comfort, why is it important? Outdoor lighting pollution concerns. So what does this means is when there is more lighting than required, so it would be lighting pollution which would cause stress and which could also create stress not only among humans but also the animals living in that park. And energy consumption concerns. Second, a prominent public park was identified in New Delhi, Lodi Garden, and a data collection method was developed. This method has been mentioned in detail below. The results from the data collection exercise were collected and analyzed and compared against the standards collected as mentioned above. Recommendations were charted out. The data collection of the public park was done as follows. A paved walking pathway in the public park was identified where there is used during the post-twilight and night time. See the area of the park near the entrance in figure 1. So here in this figure we can see the entrance of the park. The garden pathway with the lighting patch falling on the park. Second, the timing was confirmed so that the readings were taken during the dark post-twilight timings. The artificial lighting in public park was checked to be made sure was switched on. Third, the reading was taken in the horizontal plane at 1 meter above the ground level, which is as per the Indian standards and for sake of uniformity of standards. This height has been considered for measurement. At the first point of the global positioning system, readings or the latitude-longitude readings were taken. The readings were taken using smartphone-based GPS with GPS test app. The readings were repeated at an equidistant 10 steps away and were repeated. The readings were taken at the center of the path in front-facing direction. The GPS readings were repeated at multiple points, especially ones where there was a major change in direction. This means that there were changes in the direction of the pathway, and GPS readings have been specifically taken at corner points or other points where there is a change in the direction of the walking pathway. Fourth, the readings were noted down and mapped on the map of the park as shown in the figure 2. The summary of the readings is shown in figure 3. So in this figure we can easily see the pathway which was identified in the Lodi garden, and these lux levels were measured in at 250 points. The 250 points were marked on this pathway and the lux level were measured. So if we zoom into this image, we can see that these readings 1, 2, 21, these are reading from this point to this point. These are the readings that were obtained. Let's move forward. After these readings were obtained, they were analyzed and they were grouped together. So uh, reading like less than 5 lux, there were one total of 179 points which were identified out of the 250 points, so which had a lux level below 5. Then for 23 it was 6 to 10 lux. For 23 again it was 11 to 20 lux. For 17 it was 21 to 30 lux. For 9 it was 31 to 50 lux. And one reading it was 51 between 51 to 100 lux, and only one reading of all the 250 that went above 101 lux. The readings were analyzed against values that were derived from literature and standards, and the results were reported. The values used for comparison are 1 to 5 lux, meaning the path is lit. Above 5 lux have been considered over illuminated. From the comfort point of view, between 1 to 2 lux is regarded as the sweet spot for visual comfort, but for security 5 lux and above is considered ideal. The lux meter used in the study was Sigma Digital Lux Meter LX1010B, which has been calibrated. The instrument has the least count of 1 lux and has maximum error of plus minus 5%, which is 0.05 lux for 1 lux. The device has a detached probe and is connected with a stretchable cable. This enables the sensor to be away from the reading display to collect data at the right horizontal plane. A limitation to this study is that there may be other areas of the path that may determine the use of the pathway, which have been included in this study. Another limitation is that other factors like light pollution, cost of lights, policy-related issues, and lighting comfort have been evaluated in detail with focus on illuminance as stated in the paper. The study involved no human subjects, no animals, and no tissue. The study involved no human interaction or any questionnaire survey. So this study was purely based on the data which was collected using those lux meter and the points which were identified 10 steps away, which is at a fixed interval. The data collection was non-obstructive. In the above light, the study requires no ethical clearance as it is not within the same scope per the 2017 Indian Ethics Clearance Guidelines from the Indian Council of Medical Research, Government of India. So, coming on the results, what we have found out from the study and after the analysis, what are the results which are obtained? After taking readings at 252 points on the paved walking pathway within the Lodi garden, it was found that the average value from the 250 point was 6.7 lux, which was the most important to notice. What was the most important to notice is that 79 points, which are 29% of the pathway, has 0 lux as the reading, which means that one third of the pathway was not lit. Almost one third of the whole pathway was not lit at all, so it was like zero illumination. The other 179 points or 71% were lit below 5 lux with only 3% or 9 counts of point with 5 lux exactly. The readings have been mapped to side plan shown in figure 2. The total reading instanced at various illuminance levels are charted in figure 3, what we've already studied in this figure. The number of points lit at 1 lux or 2 lux was 50% of the points, which is 127 points. See figure 4. With respect to over illumination, there were 28% points that were over illuminated. So if we see figure 4, we'll find the over illuminated points, that is having illumination of more than 5 lux. Figure 2 shows that these points were at the top side of the figure, which was adjacent to the tomb wall, and this is where the illumination values were 28 and the maximum peaking up to 174. There was a stretch in the pathway where there was zero illumination for continuous 8 points at the maximum. So let's start with the discussion. The results provide a clear indication of the many factors with respect to the lighting at Lodi Garden in New Delhi. Firstly, the lighting is non-uniform with a zebra effect. So that means that on the whole pathway, the measured values which were identified, some of the values were like some of the points were completely underlit and while some points were overlit, so zebra effect. This means that there are patches of required illuminance followed by no illuminance. So like I mentioned, there are some patches where there is no illuminance at all and there are some patches where there is illuminance. On the other hand, low lighting, which is throughout the pathway uniformly, would have created a better effect regarding the sense of lighting for security. This means that there are points where there is no illumination on the walking path. This is acute where there is no pathway illumination for a straight 8 points of recording. Dark spots with zero illumination mean an increased lack of vision, chances of perceived fear, and no visual comfort, as one cannot make out the pathways or the objects around. The total portions where there are continuous 2 points or more with zero illuminance in the pathways are 10 in number. The important point to note is the actual lighting threshold that may be required. We have a point with 1 lux and 2 lux as the majority are below 5 lux. This is a total of 32.5% of the points of the total pathway. This would mean points that, as per literature, have the required visual comfort for a path in a public park. The other 20.6% are above 2 lux but below or equal to the 5 lux, which would mean neither these points have the required 5 lux from the security point of view or visual comfort point of view. Visual comfort would prevent any form of overlighting that may be required. It is important to note that the total above 50 lux instances in the pathway are only 2. This means that there is no excess lighting as such in the pathway. The most lit path of the area was near the Lodi tomb, which abuts the road on the top side. Number of dark points in this was 0. The average illumination in this stretch was 27.4 lux. So they are talking about this pathway. As you can see, this pathway is the most lit pathway. This pathway has the highest level of lux recording. So we see it's from this part till this part. These are the readings, until this part these are the readings. So as you can see, yellow means that the illumination is very high. Yes, which was way above the park's average at 6.7 lux and above the requirement for parks and much more than the requirement from the security point of view. This highlighting patch consisted of LED lights, and these were specifically to lighten the wall of the Loti tomb so that the view could be taken from the road abutting the boundary very near the tomb. Of grave concern is that these levels may be harmful from the light pollution point of view. Light pollution may not only disturb the birds and other flora and fauna of the garden ecosystem, but may also raise melatonin levels among walkers and disrupt the circadian rhythm. This high level of lighting in this stretch was in contrast to the rest of the walkway, which was lit majorly by high-power sodium lamps, which the Indian National Lighting Code has suggested to be suitable for parks at night, and which, due to warm colors, are also suitable for visual comfort. LED lights have seen rampant growth, and the newer lights in the park were also LED. But these lights have very high brightness compared to the sodium vapor lamps. These lights give higher light output at lower power consumption. Since these are LED lights, these lights consume much less energy in comparison to the traditional used sodium vapor lamps, which has also been mentioned in the standards, Indian lighting standards, that these type of lighting are the best suited lightings in the parks. These lights give higher light output at lower power consumption. This fact must not become the key guiding principle, and visual comfort should be prioritized over what may be available. Most importantly, the LED luminaires must be pointed in the right direction and used as bollard-based lighting, which focuses on the pathway instead of the trees and directly into people's eye. Regarding the luminaires, the lighting would spread all around instead of only aimed at the pathway itself. For light pollution prevention, bollard-based lighting should be used. This light points the light towards the pathway and is not very high, is just about 1 meter from the ground level, and does not spill light upwards towards the trees, thus preventing light pollution. This type of lighting probably wouldn't have been used, as these lights are more prone to vandalism and theft of the luminaire. But with bollard based available, these must be considered for parks so that the path is lit and the light pollution is prevented. But with ground based bollard lighting system, faces may not be completely illuminated. This means that there may be downlighting which may not provide complete visibility at the level of the face, and this may be a concern for safety. The balance between this concern and the prevention of light pollution needs further study. A combination of pathway lights and higher height street lamps may be used for this, but in any case, there is an absolute requirement for making a uniform spread of light, which may be lower in lux levels but is through the pathway. This will also create a more aesthetic experience for the walkers while giving them a proper sense of direction and legibility. From the security point of view, we look at the principles of SEPTED or crime prevention through environmental designs. These principles include natural surveillance or designing spaces to maximize visibility, territorial reinforcement, or establishing clear boundaries, fostering a sense of ownership. Access control or regulating access to spaces and maintenance and monitoring, among others. In this study, it is suggested that incorporating principles of SEPTED, especially natural surveillance, is possible at night only with appropriate visibility, which proper lighting can aid in providing. Even at low lux level, the presence of a person moving is possible. A very high lux level with better color rendering may be suitable but can be skipped as it may be aesthetically overlit and not ideal from the visual comfort point of view. There is also the issue of energy, which is mostly brought out by the use of low energy consumption light emitting diode based lights, which usually produce light of high illuminance compared to lighting traditionally of sodium vapor lamp, which consumes high energy but produces lower illuminance level, which perceptibility may be more comfortable. But what is not suitable from the security point of view is points on the pathway that have zero illumination. Obviously, the points on the pathway that doesn't even have that does not have any illumination are the most unsafe points in the park, because these are the niche where certain kind of criminal activities can take place, vandalism can take place, because uh, the people committing the crime, they feel that like when there is no surveillance, so they are free to like make those destroy the property, create vandalism, or do some sort of crime in that area. This must be done away within public urban parks to give a sense of real and perceived security to people using these parks. The lux level may be kept at around 2 to 5 lux. So finally, the conclusion of the paper is this study set out to find the illumination level in a famous park in New Delhi, India. The study found out that pathway was not thoroughly and uniformly lit. So, from the 250 points that were identified, we have seen that how almost one third of the path was not lit. Another significant portion was underlit from the security point of view and overlit from the comfort point of view. If not the common suitable value, an average value must be kept so that both the parameters can be given some compensation. Security in urban areas is vital as parks may be places of crime. Still, at the same time, the lighting should not flood the space and prevent any feeling of comfort for the people using it. Such studies must be repeated across parks and streets in India, and more factors like light temperature should be studied further. So that is it for this paper. Thank you.